Hello, and welcome back to Consciousness Rising, episode 6. One thing I really want to make clear, perhaps if I haven't done so before as much, but is that, a friend of mine says, a good friend of mine, he always says we're all plagiarists. And basically what it means is that, all this information that I'm putting out, just as others, it's already been discovered before. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what I want to make clear is that I'm not the author of a lot of this information. I'm just presenting it in a way that I feel comfortable to, and I enjoy presenting it. We're all plagiarists. As Mark Passio always says, there's nothing new under the sun, But, when I hear some people say, this certain theory of psychology, that's really old, that is. So what? If it's old and it works, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And so this episode, a lot of other people have done a lot of really good work on this topic, and I'm just throwing my version in, I suppose. But I'm well aware loads of other people have done good work on this topic, and it's not that I'm copying them, but I'm plagiarising. But what I do with these slideshows is I put them together in a way that I like to do. For me, I've said before that it's quite therapeutic for me to make these videos in a way, because what I'm all about at the end of the day is sharing knowledge with people. I love that, and I've tried to make all my videos, as I've said before, streamline in a certain order, and because they're all linked. But what I'm trying to do is put out empowering information out there for people, to help you in your day-to-day lives. I don't want nothing from you, other than you just, that something I say may strike a chord, I suppose I should say. But do your own research. If you really like a particular topic that I talk about, whether it was the last video on EFT, get yourself a book, do more research. Go and search other people that put out that information, because I think people that make videos like this, like myself, we've all got our own style, and it's okay if my style isn't for you. There's plenty of other people putting the truth out there, putting knowledge out there. I just wanted to clear that up, really. So, yeah, a lot of this knowledge is already out there. We're all plagiarists. A good friend of mine, Barry, always says that, and he's right. So the topic of today is psychopathy, and psychopaths, and with that we'll get started. One of the biggest problems that we have is that we get these Hollywood versions of things, and whilst they may be entertaining, you might find these films entertaining, they do sort of mess with the truth a bit, because, as I've put here, for years Hollywood has pushed out false character psychopaths through movies. There you've got Norman Bates there, and you've got Michael Myers from the Halloween series. Like I said, if you like those films, great. But unfortunately this has distorted society's views and hidden the truth to what psychopathology actually is. And yes, some psychopaths do murder and commit crimes, they definitely do, but the truth is, the vast majority of psychopaths do not. They are everyday people. Well, I say everyday people, they don't function the same as a normal person. In fact, I kind of consider them not really human in a sense. They're like a very strange offset. And the other thing I want to make sure clear in this video as well, I don't condone violence against psychopaths. I don't think we should go and out to hurt them and destroy them. They're just they have different brain chemistry, which I'll go into a little bit. But I will go into at the end how I think you should deal with them. Okay, but yeah, some psychopaths do absolutely murder and commit awful crimes, but the truth is most do not. And part of the programming that's come through movies is, you say the word psychopath to people, they'll think of Norman Bates, they'll think of Freddy Krueger, but they're Hollywood variants, they're for entertainment, but they do, mess with the actual truth that actually most psychopaths do not go around killing people. That's not actually the truth. Okay, psychopaths in society. As I say, they're everywhere. The reality is that psychopaths are all around us. They often gravitate to positions of power in society. They love power. They often present as extremely charming. A lot of people don't even know that other people are psychopaths. They're like, he seemed like a really nice guy. He had a lot going about him. They're very charming often, and they're often well liked, like I said. And this is a list of what the top 10 jobs were. I can't remember what year this was done, but it may be slightly outdated, but it gives you a kind of feel for. You might see a theme here. Okay, so I'll do it from 10 to 1. 10, you've got civil servants. Top 10 jobs psychopaths. 9, chefs. 8, clergy person. 7, police officers. 6, journalists. 5, surgeon. 4, salesperson. 3, the media. And, well, I'll do a whole episode perhaps on the media. 2, lawyer, and 1, CEO. And by looking at that list, I mean, for me, something definitely jumped out there. But see what you think. Is there any common threads there, do you think? It's quite interesting, I think. The human brain. Okay, this slide was in episode 1. Their brains do not operate the same as the average normal person. Okay, so as you've got there, the middle part, I want you to pay particular attention to the mammalian brain, the limbic brain, where your emotions are. That doesn't really function in a psychopathic brain. Doesn't function. Okay, it's shut down for some reason, not working, whatever, however you want to look at it. They actually much more are in the brainstem, the reptilian brain, the survival, fight or flight. What happens with a lot of them is their brainstem, the reptilian brain, fires and they get shots of norepinephrine, and that's a chemical and that floods their brain basically, and that's why a lot of them have like wide eyes when they're sort of caught out. So that's something to look for. If you see someone who's sort of been caught out on a lie and they get these wild staring eyes, that may be that they've got a psychopathic brain. May not be, of course. I don't want people to go around labelling everyone as psychopaths, because actually they are in the minority. But I haven't done a slide on the percentages. Perhaps I should have done. But anyway, we'll carry on. Common traits of a psychopath. There's about 35, I think, common traits, but pay particular attention to the top 5. I've done sort of 9. These are the ones that sort of I've wanted to put in because I think they're really, really important to understand. Number 1, they have absolutely no remorse. Okay, it's just business to them. They don't think the same, and a big problem that people have is they kind of, when they encounter these individuals, they think they don't understand why someone would behave in such an impulsive or lacking that remorse. Why is that part of their behaviour? Because I wouldn't do that. But what you have to do when you're trying to learn this stuff is you have to take yourself out of your own thought process, because these people do not think the same. Okay, no remorse. They have absolutely no remorse. They, as I'll go on to say, they destroy lives. Not a lot of studies been done on actually the destruction that they leave, but yeah, it's catastrophic for people that encounter these individuals. Number 2, invented personas. Okay, they can invent a persona on the spot. They're very good mimics because they don't function the same. They don't know how always to behave, so they mimic other people, and that's usually to get someone off you, or win some sort of power play. They'll invent a persona. Perhaps they'll take I don't know, just as a sort of hypothetical situation, they might take up the guitar because they really want power over a certain person, and then once they've done that part, what they wanted, once they've got from that person what they wanted or achieved what they wanted, they'll just drop the guitar and then they move on to a different persona, and they're like the previous persona is like dead to them. It's like they've forgot that they were into the guitar. That's like, they just invent personas like that. They're extremely impulsive. Studies are showing as well that a psychopath will have very high testosterone. In fact, the top 5, if you know someone with the top 5, you're more than likely dealing with a psychopath. They use pity all the time, poor them, and it's all about getting your energy. It's all about feeding on you, but they classically like to use pity against other people. Number 5, no truth about their past. That's something that, when you look into their background, you can't really get to the truth. It's always like hidden or shady, and that could be linked to the invented personas, because they've wore so many bloody masks that you can't get to the truth of it. It's just an absolute mess. They have no empathy, okay? A true human being is someone of compassion and empathy. They don't have it. So, how can they feel remorse if they don't have empathy? Their brain doesn't function that way. So they're not going to empathise with you because they can't. But obviously that is very destructive, because you are literally a thing to them. You're not a person of values and morals and decency. You're a pawn to be used on a chess game. Like I said, this is the way they are. And what I want to do is hopefully get you to understand the way they function, and you might understand that this does exist in the world. Manipulation. They love to manipulate other people, but it's all about them. They will manipulate you and they won't care. They literally do not care. They're masters of manipulation. Grandiosity, number 8. That God complex. They're more important than everyone else because everyone else is a pawn. Gaslighting is a really interesting one. I've got one slide on gaslighting, but I could do a whole episode on it. I'll go on to talk about what that is, but they use gaslighting all the time. And as a side note, everyone, if you watch the mainstream media, you're all being gaslighted day to day. End of story. That's the truth. But I'll go on to talk about that. I might even do a whole episode on gaslighting, a sort of mini episode. There I've chose the picture of a flea. It's a parasite. Their behaviour is very parasitical. They feed on other people's energy and use those around them for their own means. This is not normal human behaviour, okay? Most humans do not behave like that. But unfortunately, because a lot of us have care and empathy and understanding, when we meet these individuals, we're like, what the hell? Why are they behaving like that? I don't, because I've learnt to sort of try and suss this behaviour out because I want to understand. But most people, they judge other people on their own internal workings, and that you're just going down a dead end with that. You're not going to ever understand. You have to sort of disassociate yourself and come to think of these people as parasites. They're not normal people. Robert Hare is one of the leading figures in the world of psychopathic learnings and teachings. He's written a few books, really good ones. This quote from him: "Psychopaths view every social exchange as a feeding opportunity, just like I said. A contest or a test of wills in which there can be only one winner. Their motives are to manipulate and take, ruthlessly and without remorse." That sums up pretty much everything I've just said. But yeah, he's written a couple of books. I think one's called Without Conscience. But yeah, really good quote. That kind of this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a parasitical person wearing a human shell, basically. This is what they leave behind them. The sad part is that psychopaths leave a trail of destruction behind them. Often their victims are left confused and emotionally broken. Psychopaths, on the other hand, just move on with their lives with no remorse. They'll get in loads of relationships just to gain something. Once they've got it, they move on to someone else. It's just business, like I said at the bottom. But for the poor person left behind, their lives devastated. That's the reality of it. Emotional devastation. I could do a whole episode on the problem with psychiatry. That book on the left is called the DSM-5. It's kind of their Bible, for want of a better expression. So you go to a psychiatrist and you say, I've got this, that and the other wrong with me. I'm having all this. And they'll just look it up in a book and they'll diagnose you. And then they'll have you on some sort of antipsychotic for the rest of your life, which messes your body up. But, basically, during the 1960s, psychopathic personality was renamed to antisocial personality disorder. Very bad move. Someone with antisocial personality disorder is not necessarily a psychopath. So that was really bad. There is this common thread, if you look back, to sort of normalise psychopathy, and actually psychiatry basically ignores the truth that evil does exist. And that's it. That is the truth. Psychiatry, for me, has got so many problems. There's been different terms used to normalise psychopathic behaviour, such as sociopath. A sociopath is a psychopath. End of story. Don't get caught into all these different blooming labels, because that book on the left is full of labels. And, you know, it's just, well, a sociopath and a psychopath is the same thing. They use all these different subsets to try and normalise it. Narcissism is sometimes used, and narcissism is a bit different, but I'm not going to go into that on this video. Basically, we've all got or have had narcissistic behaviour in the past. It's actually a normal part of child development. Not that it carries on. It's not healthy. It's not a good thing. But children often will present with narcissistic traits, and then as they grow older, they grow out of those traits. So that's completely normal. So a sociopath is a psychopath. There's no difference. This is a kind of side note slide, but I had to put it in there because, you know, we're talking about psychiatry, and I've called this medicating the shadow. Psychiatry today is mostly about selling drugs for the pharmaceutical company. That is just it. The truth is that most people that go to these people are unnecessarily medicated and are often going through the normal emotions of life. You know, life isn't easy. End of story. Life isn't meant to be easy. Life has some great things in it, but it has some really tough challenges, you know. But to medicate all these different things that are just part and parcel of everyday life, you know, that's going to mess with your brain chemistry so much. In the work that I do, I've met people that have been damaged by antidepressants, you know, and it's medicating the shadow. They don't want to work with their shadow work, which, you know, I spoke about in episode 4. They'll just give you a pill. Go away, take this pill, you'll be fine. But, you know, just look up, go and get a medical journal and look up some of the side effects of some of these psychotropic drugs. It's really, really scary. And I'm just going to go back a slide. This book here, when it was first introduced, it had like 6 disorders in, I think. It now has over 60. So there's so many blooming labels just to sell drugs, you know. Connect the dots, people. It's just, you know, this is a bit of a side note, but be very careful with psychiatry. Medicating the shadow. I thought that summed it up nicely. Gaslighting. I know I mentioned that before. The Oxford Dictionary definition basically sums up what it is: to manipulate a person by psychological means into questioning his or her own sanity. This is a classic psychopathic behaviour. You know, you might be in a relationship with one and they might say, oh, that's a nice shade of red on the wall, and it might be orange to you, but they'll absolutely convince you that it's red, even though it's not. You know, that's a very simple way of looking at it, but gaslighting is changing your perception to make you think you're going mad. There is a film, I haven't seen it, I've heard things about it. I think it's actually called Gaslight. It's from the 1940s, and I think it's like I say, I haven't seen it, but I think the basic plot is that this guy basically spends the whole film gaslighting this woman, trying to make her believe she's going mad by doing little tricks and manipulative behaviours to her and messing with her house and her perception, just to basically make her feel that she's going mad, when actually there's nothing wrong with her. It's just him being an absolute arsehole. But yeah, gaslighting, I probably could go much more into depth with that, but this is just a brief tour of psychopathology. But gaslighting, like I said at the beginning, if you watch the mainstream media, they gaslight all the time. You give you the false truth of everything and make you think that reality is one way when actually it's really not. It's something completely different. But in order to do that, you need to turn off the mainstream media and go within. Gaslighting is used all the time. This is my last slide. Like I say, the best way to deal with a psychopath: literally run the other way, sever all contact with them, never talk to them again, because everything you give them they will use in some way or other. You are nothing to them, and as I put there, you cannot ever get even with a psychopath. You can't. They don't think the same. You know, they don't have the same wiring as you. They don't have empathy, and they don't have remorse. How the hell are you going to get even with a psychopath if they cannot feel remorse or empathy? You can't. You know, they are really not human to me, in a sense. They're wearing a human shell, but they're not human. You know, for them, as I've put at the bottom, it's just business. You are a pawn. You are to be used. They are to suck your energy, and when they've got everything from you, they'll just move on to the next poor sod. And that's why they leave such devastation. But this really is an important video, because this is what's wrong with the world. When you get to the understanding that I've got to through all my years of study on human behaviour, on psychology, on alternative media, lots of different avenues I study, spirituality, you get to the point that the reason the world's in such a state is because a few of these people, a few of these psychopaths are running your life. Okay? And that's it. We'll go into more depth as we go on, but that is basically it, I think, really. I just wanted to do a very brief video on psychopathology, and, you know, many of you might be new to my work, and if you're watching this video, you might think, blimey, I know someone just like that, or I've been the victim of that. And I really feel for people that are victims of this, because these people are not easy to understand, you know. But yeah, there we go. Psychopathology, the one problem in the world. Take care, guys. See you later.